United Health Group is simplifying healthcare by investing in tools to help patients know more and pay less. These tools help patients find providers and compare costs and save hundreds of dollars annually. Learn more at unitedhealthgroup.com/commitment.
The new LinkedIn Hiring Pro can't undo your last hire. The lone wolf, who you thought was a good collaborator because you didn't have the right candidate insights. But once you hired them, it was all hoarding info, declining meetings, and howling at the full moon? But LinkedIn Hiring Pro can go deeper than just the resume to find you a perfect fit. By using insights from the LinkedIn network to give you a short list of best fit candidates. Hire right the first time with LinkedIn Hiring Pro. Post a free job today at linkedin.com/Pandora.
Though Dr. Frank Putnam didn't set out to specialize in child abuse, he quickly realized that's where he was needed. Not because he was better suited than any other psychiatrist, but because very few were willing to take it on. Putnam dedicated his career to revealing the scars this trauma carves into the minds and bodies of victims. Today, he's recorded his life's work in his new book, Old Before Their Time, a scientific life investigating how maltreatment harms children and the adults they become.
A lot of people would say, doesn't this make you depressed? And my answer really has always been, no, it makes me angry. And I've really drawn on that side of it. This is wrong. This is bad. This is evil. This is a crime. This is terrible. You got to do something about it. It's not a good news book, which is a kind of a sad thing. All the time I was writing it, I really struggled with how much do I put in? But the other side of it is just, you got to tell the truth. And it's a devastating experience.
An experience that Putnam says is often even worse than most people think. Putnam is a child and adolescent psychiatrist and professor of clinical psychiatry at the University of North Carolina School of Medicine. He's one of the originators of the Female Growth and Development Study, one of the longest-running studies of the impacts of childhood sexual abuse. It started in 1987, following around 80 girls who had experienced this trauma.
They were ages 6 to 15, and that had to do with our wanting to span puberty. And then we followed these children for 8 times into middle age at this point. We're still in touch with them, and we're still following them. And in fact, we have 2 more papers in press that are looking at adult out results. The study is focused around the biology, the effects on the biology, particularly certain hormonal systems like the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal process, which has to do with stress. It's the cortisol hormone that people hear about. It's adrenaline. Also the HPG, hypothalamic pituitary gonadal axis. And so we looked at a lot of what they call sex hormones, estrogen, testosterone, androstenedione, those sorts of things.
To get a baseline, the researchers matched each participant with a non-abused girl who had the same age, race, and family socioeconomic status. This comparison controlled for powerful factors that can alter life outcomes so that the study could focus on the effects of abuse. In addition to looking at how it impacts puberty, Putnam and his colleagues followed numerous other areas of their health, a taboo endeavor for the time. Putnam received heavy pushback from others in the medical field for even considering that this trauma has a biological impact. Thankfully, he stood his ground and used the Female Growth and Development Study to prove that sexual abuse in childhood has much more devastating effects than anyone was aware of.
We're looking at changes in the sort of puberty in terms of how fast they mature. We're looking at changes in their maturation of their stress response system. We're looking at changes in their immune system. We're looking at also cognitive development was pretty significantly impaired in these girls. And none of them ever got a 4-year college degree. A few of them got 2-year degrees compared to our comparison girls who were out of the same socioeconomic class, had the same sort of minority distribution, et cetera, who did pretty well generally. These girls were just really devastated.
The abused group also experienced more jail time and domestic violence later in life.
They got re-victimized as adults. So there was a cumulative trauma burden that went along with this also. And several of the children born to our original children died as a result of abuse. At least 3 died as a result of the offspring. So, we just watched this terrible thing cascade from generation to generation.
While they don't have nearly as much data on the new generation as they do the original girls, Putnam says they've noticed a distinct pattern of behavioral problems.
Pretty much they're replicating their parents' course. And this is one of the things that really emerges out of all of our studies looking at the three generations, is how much this is an intergenerational process and how trauma in one generation is transmitted as risk for trauma in the next generation, and so on. If you look at in the book, there's a figure that shows you how often the mothers of our abused girls were themselves sexually abused as children, and it's almost all of them, whereas it's relatively rare experience in the mothers of the comparison girls.
Putnam believes having a parent who is abused is the single greatest risk factor for a child's abuse.
It increases likelihood of substance abuse. It increases likelihood that you're going to have a partner who is also abused, which is another risk factor. It increases the fact that there's more likely to be domestic violence in the home. It leads to a whole host of other things that increase the risk for maltreatment of that child. Often it's not the mother who was abused who is maltreating the child. It's that they associate with people who do abuse the child, and they take advantage of kind of a failure to protect their children. These mothers often are not as vigilant as other mothers in terms of protecting their children from abuse. It's a paradoxical thing, and it feels like blaming the victim a little bit, but it's also something that's been found not just in our study, but in other studies.
When addressing the initial pushback Putnam received to his idea on how trauma creates biological changes, he notes that part of the issue is many people think of this abuse as a one-time experience.
What people don't understand is that this is a hugely cumulative experience that goes on and on. It crosses all these developmental stages. It's a time when the child is both developing psychologically, but also developing physiologically. And it has impacts on both of those kinds of lines of development. And I think that's one thing that the media doesn't really take into account, how much this is a chronic situation for these children. Point I would make is that we found the average child in our study had been abused between 100 and 200 times. Okay, that's massive. It's not just a one-time thing. It's something that happens to them all the time. It stresses them continuously. Even when they're not being abused, they're anxious about when is the next, going to happen. Because most of these kids were abused within a family context. And so they were always, in a sense, vulnerable. There was no safe place for them.
Today, the biological effects of trauma are widely accepted as true thanks to research like Putnam's. However, there continues to be issues with people accepting that abuse is happening.
As an advocate, often when I talk to people, they often, who would do that to a child? I can't imagine anybody would do that. So there's a group of people that it's just an unimaginable experience.
The reality, though, is that thousands of kids each year know exactly what type of person would do that to a child. Despite our knowledge on how prevalent this abuse is, Putnam says there's still a lot of neglect both in society and in the legal system. Join us next week as Putnam discusses his first-hand experience with this dismissal and how he can break these cycles of abuse. His book, Old Before Their Time, is available now wherever books are sold. You can find more information about Dr. Frank Putnam and all of our guests on our website, ingoodhealthpodcast.org. For more behind the scenes, follow In Good Health Pod on Facebook, Instagram, and X. Our writer-producer is Kristen Farrah. Our production manager is Jason Dickey. I'm Greg Johnson.
The new LinkedIn Hiring Pro can't undo your last hire. The lone wolf, who you thought was a good collaborator because you didn't have the right candidate insights. But once you hired them, it was all hoarding info, declining meetings, and howling at the full moon? But LinkedIn Hiring Pro can go deeper than just the resume to find you a perfect fit. By using insights from the LinkedIn network to give you a short list of best fit candidates. Hire right the first time with LinkedIn Hiring Pro. Post a free job today at linkedin.com/Pandora.
Try Angel Soft for your tushy. It's made by angels. Soft and strong, budget friendly. The choice is simple.
Pick up a pack today.
Angel Soft. Soft and strong, simple.